You are listening to Grab Them by the Pod, a member of the ACE Podcast Network. And thank you for joining us once again here at Grab Them by the Pod. I am Kevin with Jesse, and what better to do on a Saturday night than talk about some politics?
You know, there's nothing else I'd be rather doing. You know, why go out to a bar or a club or on a date or anything when I can talk to you, Kevin? And the reason we're doing this is because I'm going to be gone for the next week or so. I'm sure we're going to miss lots of important things that happen, but unfortunately I have to travel for work, and they pay the bills. I love this more than work, but I don't get the same amount of money that I do from the day job.
You know, every once in a while we actually have to, earn a living.
But, if you go to patreon.com/grab, you can give, I think it's that /grab, you can give us money and let me quit my job. It'd be great.
Yeah, if you want more, Grab Them by the Pod. If you really enjoy the show, we could be doing this full time if you want to put some money in our pockets.
Now, if you remember our last episode, which came out last Monday, it was right after we had some big breaking news that somebody in the Oval Office, yes, the president, had shared some information with the Russians, which, that's not good. And of course, the next day, even more. I mean, every day, every single day, more information comes out. But the big news came out last week on Tuesday that we found out that Comey had been writing some disturbing memos about the president, as he's been known to do throughout his career. And disturbing not because of what he was writing, because with the subject they were on. Apparently, in an Oval Office meeting in February, Trump asked the former FBI Director Comey to shut down the federal investigation into Michael Flynn, who, of course, is his former national security advisor. And the quote itself was, "I hope you can see your way clear to letting this go, to letting Flynn go. He's a good guy. I hope you can let this go." The president can't do that. That's obstruction of justice.
Yeah, shades of Watergate, October 20th, 1972, the Saturday Night Massacre, Nixon firing Special Prosecutor Archibald Cox.
Just not a smart move on the president's part, especially because he pissed off the wrong 6'8" guy. I mean, Comey is a giant, and he's not going to go away quietly. I mean, we've talked about things like impeachment in the past, and you don't want to get ahead of yourself. You don't want to be super partisan and just every little thing the president does yell out and say it's impeachable. But I think this might be the first thing that consensus is around, that it may not necessarily be impeachable, but it's definitely worth talking about and using the I word.
Yeah, it certainly is. And we saw late this week that I saw a number of articles referring to some of the White House lawyers looking into impeachment in the process. So it seems as even the Trump administration itself is beginning to gird itself and get ready for a potential impeachment showdown in Congress.
And it's telling that when this normally happens, this kind of crap has happened in the last few months. Republicans are out there. They're pushing the agenda. They're having the same talking points. They're defending the president. When this happened, it was all quiet on the Western Front. All of the Republicans disappeared. I saw one person from BuzzFeed saw Darrell Issa running and asked about this, and he flipped her to the bird, and then kept on running. So no one wanted to talk about this. And when the Republicans eventually did kind of come out of hiding and start talking, then a couple of them were saying, maybe impeachment is on the table if what Comey is saying is actually true.
Right. The Republicans are in a tough position here because for the first time in 8 years, they have somebody in the White House that they can get their legislation passed through. And they aren't going to be so quick to try to get rid of that situation. But at the same time, President Trump has shown himself to be a little bit unstable at the wheel. And so they have to weigh their options.
I mean, let's be honest. The reason that a lot of the Republicans are backing Trump is because they have things they want to get through. They have legislation. They have issues they want to get through. And if you piss off the president of your party, well, then you may not get it through. But also now they have to think that 2018 is only about 18 months away, and getting your legislation through isn't going to matter if you don't have a job come November 7th of 2018. So at a certain point, it looks like, I don't want to say enough is enough, but they're breaking rank. I mean, if you just look at a recent, I forget who ran it. I should have information in front of me. Of course, I don't. A recent, in the last day or so, poll had that 75% of Republicans are backing Trump. And that's a far drop from recent, even a couple of weeks ago. I think it was still in the 90s. I couldn't believe it. So at least for the moment, this is very real to a lot of people who have been backing Trump for one reason or another.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where this goes. I'm certainly on the edge of my seat.
And a lot of people, I remember when this first came out, said, "Oh, it's weird. Why is he taking all these memos and all these notes?" But Comey is known for that. I mean, he went against the Bush administration and George W. Bush, and basically won because of the notes he took. He's known for writing down, and if you see what's happening right now, it's safe because that way he has a well-documented account of what's going on, so that things can't be blow back on him and get him in trouble.
Well, one of the things that Comey was in the news about this week was how uncomfortable he was with the relationship that Donald Trump was trying to establish with him. Right? There was the hug. The hug. You want to tell us about the hug, Jess?
Oh, boy. When you watch the video, it's just kind of ridiculous. I mean, you've even read that Comey didn't want this. He actually was hiding in the drapes. He wore a blue suit that kind of matched with the drapes in the White House. So maybe even this guy's a monster of a man, 6'8", he could kind of hide. But no, it didn't work. Comey was called over, and he didn't even want to shake his hand. He didn't feel it's comfortable because you don't want to be buddy-buddy with the president. You should be independent, as we've been saying for the last week or two. He extended his hand to shake it, and Trump kind of went in for a hug. And if you watched it, I watched it again today, it's really one person hugging a guy who's shaking another guy's hand. So it did not look good, and it just put a really sour taste in Comey's mouth, which I guess we can understand why.
Well, according to Benjamin Wittes, who's the editor-in-chief over at Lawfare, who is also a personal friend of James Comey, he said that Comey was disgusted, in quotes, by the hug that Trump gave him at that White House meeting, and that Comey was going out of his way to try to stay at arm's length. He believes that the FBI director should be at arm's length from the president of the United States, and that it was just completely unsettling to him.
And that's one of the reasons why we were against a lot of these candidates for the FBI director job. We don't want these people who don't know that, who aren't going to be at arm's length, who are going to be right next to his side, holding his hand for all we know. It's also interesting that Comey had to tell the president that if you want to know details about some of the FBI investigations, don't call him. Like, don't call me in the middle of the night and contact me. Use the proper channels, have the White House counsel contact the DOJ, do things how they're done. He did not want to be seen as being part of the Trump administration because he's not. He's the FBI director. It should be totally separate from that.
Right. Aside from being appointed, that's where the relationship needs to end. It needs to be somebody who is impartial, who will look at both sides equally under the law.
So this was like a big deal. I was getting my hair cut on Tuesday afternoon. I come out and my phone is blowing up. I'm like, what the hell is going on? All the channels are saying, this is a big deal. Impeachment, possibly, except for Fox News. Fox News was talking about a debunked story about a DNC staffer who was killed and their relation to WikiLeaks and all this stuff, that's literally fake news. The family of this poor kid had to send a cease and desist letter to Fox saying, stop talking about it. It's not true. You're saying lies. And there was another poll that came out recently saying that like 93% of the news coverage about Trump has been negative. And people are pointing at that saying, see, it's not fair, but being negative doesn't mean that it's not true. Like, there's no correlation between whether it's true or not and whether it was positive or negative. I mean, look at all the scandals that are coming out. And it's no wonder that these have all been negative.
Right. When you partake in improprieties and when you do wrong things and the news reports on that, that's just news. That's telling the rest of the world what you're doing.
All right, so that was enough of a scandal for 1 week, right? No, wrong. Then we found out that the previous week when the Russians, both Sergei Kislyak, who is the Russian ambassador, and by the way, probably a head spy for Russia, and Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, whether they were meeting with Russia because, Putin, that guy who tried to fix our elections and stuff, called Trump and said, hey, can you meet with them? And Trump's like, yes, master, whatever you like.
Well, wait a minute. Isn't, according to Representative, was it Kevin McCarthy, he thinks that Putin is paying Donald Trump to have these meetings?
Yeah, I think it was Dana Rohrabacher was the other person. And again, these are the things that come back and they bite you in the butt when you have Kevin McCarthy saying, like, I'm serious. And don't leak this. Of course, it got leaked. But I'm serious that I think Trump is being paid by Putin. And then you see something like this. Like, we should be telling Putin to go screw himself. I mean, that should be a nonpartisan idea. I know it's a big country and you need them when it comes to Syria and things like this. But they legitimately tried to screw our elections. They did screw our elections, I would say. They tried to screw the French elections recently. I mean, this is what they do. And now you're letting two of their bigwigs come in. For all we know, they're dropping bugs all over the Oval Office. It's really just bizarre and not smart. So anyways, while they were in that meeting, it turns out he started talking about Comey and saying, I just fired the head of the FBI. He was crazy, a real nut job. Which you shouldn't be talking about that to the Russians. You shouldn't be telling them that things are going to be easier now this guy is gone.
And all that I could think of after this came out was that photograph of Kislyak, Lavrov, and Donald Trump in the Oval Office having a laugh. And the two Russians seem to be, it's a real knee slapper. Those guys are laughing their butts off. And all I could think of was they're saying to each other, this guy's a nut job.
I almost see them playing a game to see how far will they go. Like, can they ask him for the nuclear codes? Is that too far? He probably won't give those up. But what's the limit?
He does.
Yeah,
until he does.
Well, one of the things I was reading this week is that he said they can't. It's so hard when it comes to the classified briefings and stuff because they want to tell him don't tell people these certain things. But if they say it to him, those are the things that he's going to say. There was a great Politico article just talking about how everybody in the White House is just like freaking out and thinks Trump is crazy and are already prepping for their next jobs down the pike. When your own staff and your own White House is doing this and they're leaking stuff, something's wrong. And of course, Spicer, that's all you can focus on. The White House, all they can focus on is that it's the leaks. The leaks are bad. And it's been said by a lot of people, and I think it's a great comparison, that it's like a guy getting caught cheating and then yelling at his wife for looking at his phone.
It's that diversionary politics once again, and we know that they're the professionals at it, so it should be expected at this point.
Dude, Trump cannot get away or cannot stop bragging. I mean, we saw that when it came to that asset. By the way, the asset we talked about in the last episode that he looks like he screwed over was likely Israeli. Even though he's meeting with Netanyahu and going to be in Israel in the next couple of days, that can't make them happy that he just couldn't keep his fat mouth shut and share this information with the Russians. I say this every episode. It's ridiculous, but I shouldn't be surprised. But I am. I don't know.
It's the sad reality is that we have to consider, this in this situation that we shouldn't be surprised. We should be. We deserve so much better. We should be surprised by these things. But in these first several months of the Trump presidency, we really can't be anymore because one after another, these situations keep coming out.
It's been said before, but it can't be said too many times that this is all very special treatment for Donald Trump. If Barack Obama had done most of this stuff, if George W. Bush had done this stuff, we would have been burning them, in effigy. It would have been insanity. But, it's just Trump. Like, that's what he does. We're expecting it. And the fact that we're expecting it's becoming normal, that's not good.
Well, and his supporters, the people who still stand behind the man, even with all that has come out, and even with, his ineptitude in the job, they stand behind it because they say, well, this is what we wanted. This is what we voted for. He's an outsider. No kidding. He doesn't know what to do, but that's okay. We want somebody to come in and shake it up. But truth be told, it is a danger to the rest of us. It is a danger to our country and the existence of our democracy to allow him to continue making these mistakes.
Some of these people, and again, they did an article on his ride or dies, basically, said when they see a lot of these stories, they just ignore them. They don't want to hear it. Hillary's still bad, even though Hillary has nothing to do with anything. One guy said, what would make him turn on Trump? Well, if he gassed his own people. And he goes, I'm just kidding. But not really. I mean, these are literally what it would take them to turn against him. And the sad part is, by the time his hurtful policies affect them, whether it's health care or tax reform, it's going to be like 2020, and the election will have happened for the next president, and it's all too late. And I guess that's part of the plan on the Trump team is to get this stuff done and not have it go into effect until he's elected again if he runs.
The wheels are turning inside the minds of those who are running the show.
And I tell you, every week that goes by, our podcast from a couple weeks ago was looking stupider and stupider, where I laughed at The Rock running. But The Rock might actually be running now. I hope it's a legitimate candidate running. But I look at The Rock and say, you know what? I think he would always do the right thing. But then again, he's an actor, so who knows what he would really do. So all this nonsense is going on. And then again, even more nonsense is brought to light. Turns out Trump and his team knew that Flynn was under investigation, and they decided to hire him anyways because, why not? He's what's the worst that could happen when you're a national security advisor and you're under investigation for taking money for Turkey, right?
No, nothing at all.
I'm telling you. Now, this is where it gets interesting. I don't know that's not illegal, but it's stupid. And Pence was the head of his transition team. So who knows? Maybe something comes on that it takes down Pence too. Then we have President Paul Ryan or President Nancy Pelosi. Who the hell knows? I mean, this all sounds so far-fetched. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but it's not so far-fetched, actually. I mean, this stuff can go down and happen.
Right. This is the stuff that television drama series that revolve around political scandals. This is what it's made of. It's art imitating life and life imitating art at the moment. But, I take issue with the idea that Trump hired Flynn with knowing that Flynn had done these things, and then coming out and saying that the Obama administration should have done something about it. They're the ones that should have vetted him. Well, they did. If we look at facts, at what actually happened, the Obama administration fired Mike Flynn when he was still a general in the Army because of what a source that worked close with Flynn called insubordination, despite what Mike Flynn tried to play off as just saying he had harder line views on extremist Islam than the Obama administration did. It was for insubordination.
And this is all going to come to a head sooner rather than later, I think. So finally, we were actually together when we found this out, that they decided to name a special independent counsel or independent prosecutor, and they chose former FBI Director Robert Mueller. And this guy is like a straight shooter. He was Comey before Comey was around, just by how he's doing it now. He hates the limelight, and he actually has a background with Comey. So I read some article that back in, what was it, 04 or 01 or something, or, during the W presidency, John Ashcroft was I had some surgery, so Comey was named, I think, acting attorney general, and they were afraid that Alberto Gonzales was going to try to get something signed by Ashcroft while he was still recovering, and that wouldn't have been right. And Comey and Mueller ran to the hospital, and they had the Secret Service and DOJ agents going against each. It was this insane thing, but it shows that Comey and Mueller are going to do the right thing because it's right. It doesn't matter who the president is. And just a little background before I shut up. Mueller was announced as FBI director in 2001, just before the 9/11 attacks. So he's seen the tough stuff, and he was there under George W. Bush and Barack Obama. And Obama actually extended his posting by 2 years, because usually 10 years. Let him stay there for 12. So this guy's a real deal.
Well, as you said, he's a straight shooter, and prior to his life in government service. Well, technically it's still government service. He was an officer in the United States Marine Corps during Vietnam. And a shout out to my father, who was also in the 3rd Marine Division, as was Mueller. And he received a Bronze Star and 2 Commendation Medals and a Purple Heart for his service. So the man believes in country. He believes in serving his country. And that is exactly what he's doing right now, trying to get to the bottom of what went on back in November.
Can't you, when this is all said and done, get your dad to be like, hey, from one vet to another, come on my son's podcast.
I don't know if the connection runs that deep.
No,
I don't think the two ever met, but they were from the same Marine Division.
So if there's something to be found, I think Mueller will find it. And if there's nothing to be found, that might be a fact. And he won't find it, but for the right reasons, if that makes sense. So all this stuff is going on, and it's Wednesday at this point. I'm like, oh my God, this is the most insane week we've seen in a long time, and that's saying something on all the insane weeks we've said. And for about a day and a half, Trump wasn't saying anything, and people were like, wow, Trump has not tweeted in a day and a half. This is a big deal. And then, of course, the floodgates open, and out came Trump. And he said this is the single greatest witch hunt of a politician in American history. With all the illegal acts that took place in the Clinton campaign and the Obama administration, there was never a special counsel appointed. So he's doubling down on the whole Obama thing. Not only did he wiretap him, there were also illegal things happening in the Obama administration, not to mention the Clinton campaign. This is the point where his lawyers and everybody should be saying, shut up. Apparently his staff had a Twitter meeting with him saying, you got to stop this. It has to have an intervention. And apparently it didn't work.
Well, President Trump, time for a history lesson. Welcome to Mr. Brown's classroom. Matt Pierce over at the LA Times had a great article this week that he quoted numerous political science and history professors from institutions across the country. And collectively, they kind of scored 3 presidents who had worse political witch hunts on their heads. 1, Andrew Jackson versus John Quincy Adams, when Jacksonians accused John Quincy Adams of buying a gambling device with taxpayer money. That gambling device, a billiards table. 2, Andrew Johnson, who was impeached by the House of Representatives and narrowly escaped being removed from office by the Senate for political reasons due to his lack of support for Reconstruction. And the winner, taking the cake in fairly recent history, Bill Clinton, with numerous investigations into his conduct, including the investigation into Whitewater by Kenneth Starr, which then brought out the Monica Lewinsky scandal, which led to an impeachment by the House of Representatives, but with the Senate not being able to remove him from office. So President Trump, there have been other politicians who have had worse witch hunts on their heads.
Let's not forget. So a couple days later, he was actually here in Connecticut at the Coast Guard Academy graduation. Gave a speech where he said something similar, like, no politicians had it harder than me, something along those lines. And again, the people you mentioned, let's not forget, all the presidents who were shot and killed. They've had it harder than he has as a politician. Some people are like, oh, Nelson Mandela probably had it kind of tough as a politician. So, Trump. At a graduation, it shouldn't be about Trump. It should be about how these people go forward and do, make the best of their situation, blah, blah, blah. But Trump can't have it be about anybody but him, Yeah, you guys are graduating. Let me talk about me.
Can't imagine being a graduate or a parent or a loved one of a graduate at the Coast Guard, listening to that and hearing him make it all about himself.
Yeah. At least the Coast Guard Academy was, down in the state. I didn't screw up my traffic at all for work. That's the one thing I'm happy about. When I lived in the Washington, D.C. area, man, it was both Obama and Bush did it. They would decide to leave the White House at rush hour and make me just sit there for another 45 minutes waiting for them to leave. Very angry.
Oh, what's another 45 minutes?
Really, what's another? So, as if things weren't bad enough for the Trump administration, a few days ago, Lindsey Graham came out and basically said, I think what we all saw coming was that this investigation is now seen as a criminal investigation. Big things are going to be coming. And he mentioned, Congress is kind of out of it now with the criminal investigation. That's not necessarily a bad thing. Now the FBI and those folks can really focus on it. And, a day after that or so, it was reported that the investigation has identified a current White House official as a significant person of interest, and the rumors are getting stronger and stronger that it's actually Jared Kushner. And
not the golden child.
Well, as I think a cartoonist I saw make a picture, honey, it's only your first husband. Come on, you can let him go. And again, out of anybody in that White House, Kushner is the most, I think, liberal leaning. So, but he has the ties to Russia and another thing. His family members were kind of using the Trump name in some other areas where they shouldn't have been doing. So this is, not to make fun of the Netflix series House of Cards, which is coming back on the 30th of Tuesday the 30th. Watch it. This is really just a House of Cards. And you're going to pull out Kushner, you're going to pull out one person, and it's all going to come toppling down. This is how these things happen. It just all falls down when you pull out the keystone, and it doesn't look good. I don't know how long this is going to take. I don't even know for sure they're going to find anything, but it does not look good for the White House right now and the administration.
What was that I said about art imitating life?
Tell me about it. It's stranger than fiction is what I said earlier this week, man, that you couldn't make half this stuff up. If you wrote a movie about this stuff, you'd say it was too far-fetched and it was stupid, but no. Although I saw someone tweet earlier this week that when the inevitable movie gets made, it'll be made through Comey's eyes. They call it Comey, and you'll see him, if he is considered the ultimate hero of all of this. The tragic hero because of what happened with the letter before the election, and then the redemption of going through and taking down a crazy president.
And totally redeem yourself.
Yeah. And it's going to be exciting. I think the internet may break. Comey has announced they're going to be testifying before the Senate Intelligence Committee. They're going to name a date for his testimony after Memorial Day. And I can imagine just C-SPAN and all of this stuff just like falling down. If he says things that could take down a president, it's history in the making, and I would urge everybody to watch it. I know a lot of these hearings can be a little boring, but man, some of the information, if it comes out, what we think might come out, you're going to want to remember where you were, I think, when he says some of these things.
People often, ridicule me for watching C-SPAN for fun, but let me tell you, this is going to be some riveting television.
We're nerds, okay? We're dorks. I find it very soothing to have C-SPAN on in the background. I used to have like the Senate procedural hearings or procedural whatever in the background and just hear the votes and everything. It was very nice. But most of the people in the country, I guess, would not do that. But I would recommend, if you just need some like background noise, stick on C-SPAN.
Oh, I watch C-SPAN all the time, and I prefer the term political egghead.
I try whenever these big things happen, and they have the line, the Republican line, the Democrat line, Independent line. I try calling through to speak, and I can never get through. And the people that do get through, it drives me nuts because they're usually relatively uninformed, and they're just angry, and they're yelling at the guy. I mean, John Oliver has made a segment about this on his show about this guy, the guy I can't remember his name, but the guy who takes these calls being the most patient man in the world because people just say the most insane things when they call in. I can only imagine people have nothing. I can't imagine that many people are watching and make the phone lines busy. But I actually, after the healthcare reform bill didn't pass the first time, I called in roughly 50 times in a row and couldn't get through. But
well, those angry people make for better television.
They do. Who wants someone speaking with facts? All right, whew, that's a lot of information on Comey and on Trump and stuff, so we can let that go for the moment. By the time you're reading this, more stuff may have come out. We don't. It's the problem with podcasts these days is that anytime you record something else insane is happening at that exact moment. But and likely it's going to still do with Trump, as Trump is kind of going on his first foreign trip. He's in the Middle East right now. He's in Saudi Arabia. Earlier today, he went to the Men Only concert by Toby Keith. Though I heard Melania made a little drive by, but you can't have her there. And so he's going to Saudi Arabia, which, God help me, the things he could say there about Islam that could just set the world on fire. Then to Israel, Vatican City, then the NATO meeting in G7. So this is like a week where Trump could totally – he's already kind of screwed up us domestically. He could screw us up in the foreign stage as well.
Well, I think this week, the 56% of people who in a poll, according to Reuters this week, that disapprove of the president, they can kind of take a collective sigh of relief as he is out of the country for 9 days. All right. We get a break from Donald Trump being here. But as you said, he's overseas on the world stage, potentially causing an international incident. So I don't really know if we can relax ourselves just yet.
But from what I hear, it's showing people that he's just full of crap. To put it bluntly, is that when he ran so hard against Islam and said some really inflammatory things about it. And I hear he's going to be very a little more soft-spoken when it comes to it. This is not about, the America versus Islam. It's good versus evil. The same talking points we've heard politicians say he's not going to say Islamic terrorism or Islamic fundamental terrorism, whatever. And these are the things that he yelled at Obama and other people for not saying themselves. So it shows that you become president and suddenly what you advocated as a candidate can't necessarily happen as POTUS.
Right. I think it shows a little bit of cowardice. If you can run so strongly on that hatred towards a particular group of people and you can rally your base around that, but then when you actually have to go and meet people from that background, you're gonna step it back some. While I agree that's a better foreign policy strategy, if you really if that's your courage of your convictions, stand up for what you really believe in. And if not, then maybe you need to reevaluate what you believe in.
Although they're already kissing Trump's butt. If you saw some of the pictures, they have giant poster boards of him and their president or the king, whoever the hell he's meeting with over there, prime minister.
Yeah, and steak and ketchup too. I know they're really, you know why? You know why? Because they just signed today a $110 billion arms deal between the United States and Saudi Arabia, where King Abdulaziz Al Saud and Donald Trump signed off or oversaw the signing off on this agreement, which was negotiated by Jared Kushner. That's why they're bending over backwards.
And is it Roger Stone, who is one of Trump's biggest backers, was tweeting out today that you shouldn't be doing that. You should be making them pay for 9/11 because they were the ones that financed it. Oh my God, it's not worth talking about right at this moment.
Throwing flames on the fire there, some
really.
gas on the fire.
I thought the whole well done steak and ketchup was just a joke until recently. No, that's the odd thing that he really likes. I'm like, I don't
he's always
understand
said that himself as a first grader is not much different than himself now. My son's in first grade. He likes to eat ketchup with his steak.
And it's weird that the president would actually admit something like that. The saddest part is going to come from these NATO meetings. I mean, he's already threatened to pull out of NATO a million times with the NATO and G7. So these are meetings with heads of other countries, important people, and they normally have a lot of speeches. And the speeches have been they've been told to keep their speeches at least 4 minutes or less because Donald Trump can't keep his attention on these speeches for any more than that. And this is following reports that you had to put Trump all over his news reports and briefings to keep him interested. I mean, you can't have a president who's not paying attention. I know we've all been in school where we're bored and don't want to pay attention, but don't run for president if you don't want to sit there and listen to these important speeches.
It's like a joke, right? That you have to put the man's name ever so often throughout the paragraphs just to keep him reading. I mean, what does that say?
It's a bad joke. And these are the reasons why he says dumb things when he's in meetings. He says things he's not supposed to, because there are probably bullet points that say, do not mention this to the Russian ambassador. And he can't get that far down the note.
You know, it's like one of those fake quizzes that, you know, your teachers like to trick you with in high school that say, read all the way to the end. You missed the directions. You skipped over the directions and you did it. And you got to the last question. It said, you know, if you read the directions, you only have to do question number 1.
Yeah.
You know, that's kind of what we're dealing with from the President of the United States.
Oh, and this trip actually may mark the end of an era. You know, I've talked about this in the past. Spicy might be gone again. We say this every week, so maybe it's only inevitable. But reports have come out that once they get back, Spicer's role is really going to be downsized, and that he's not going to be doing his daily on-camera briefings anymore. And again, I've complained about this in the past. I love my Spicy. He gave an audio only gaggle, so you couldn't actually see them, although the camera was basically just pointed on C-SPAN, at least, at the wall. And he wasn't his fiery self. He wasn't yelling. He wasn't joking. He just sounded defeated. So I mean, between everything that's happening, maybe he just sees the writing on the wall, or maybe he just can't take any more scandals.
Well, lots of reports have been coming out in numerous papers that the staff is miserable. You can't deal with perpetual scandal and perpetual upheaval like this without becoming miserable.
Well, nobody wants to speak either, because the president will then contradict them a day later. It's embarrassing, and especially when this whole last scandal came on Tuesday, reports I read were that Trump just disappeared to the residence and basically didn't want to deal with it. It was screaming at the TV, but left everybody else to deal with his mess. And you can't just keep making a dumpster fire and then leaving others to put it out.
Well, you can if you're president number 45.
You can. You just shouldn't. So, all right. Well, you know what? We've been young about Republicans the entire time. So let's go at a Democrat. Anthony Weiner.
Dems are bad too. Yeah.
Yep. Former congressman and a Democratic congressman, and would be mayor of New York City if only he could control himself. Anthony Weiner pled guilty to basically sexting a 15-year-old, and as part of the plea agreement, he has to register as a sex offender. That doesn't go away, and prosecutors want to go away for about 2 to 2.5 years. So it's not looking good for Weenie.
Oh, if ever there was a more fitting name for somebody, Anthony's Weiner got him in trouble.
Well, Carlos Danger is his nom de plume, or as our friend Patrick said, his pseudonym for film, like pseudonym. Yeah, like pseudonym, Patrick. It's a pseudonym. No, Carlos Danger is what he was tweeting some people at, or texting with people as, which, is when it comes to fake names, that's kind of a cool name. Carlos Danger. I don't know, but Huma Abedin, who is the main Hillary's main staffer, she's already signed up for divorce. So it's not going to get any better anytime soon for Anthony Weiner. Oh. And the guy kind of looks like a creep. And with less name Weiner, I can't imagine if they send him to real prison that he'll fare well, although he'll probably go to Camp Cupcake or something.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what goes down between him and Huma, because apparently, according to some reports, he had his wedding ring on at his court hearing. And he also, in court, claimed that, he has a sickness. He has finally admitted that he has a sickness. But, how the mighty have fallen.
Hey, it's you got to be careful whether it's him or Spitzer. These guys, they let their pants do the talking, and sure, Spitzer was just screwing prostitutes, but at least they were of age. I guess Weiner didn't, as far as we know, didn't actually touch anybody, but it doesn't make it good. You can't be sending, your Weiner's Weiner to girls of that age. Just not cool, not legal. Just no. And I think Huma's kind of cute. I guess maybe she's been out since the whole scandal started.
Apparently, she's going to be single pretty soon.
Well, you can give her a call. I'm going to be a power couple. It'd be great. And ending here with another, I guess, former Democrat, now independent, Joe Lieberman. So last week we talked about like 12 different people who could be up for the FBI director's job. One of the people that was not on that list that nobody saw coming was former Senator Joe Lieberman, again from our state, Connecticut. And he's emerged somehow as the leading candidate. Where did that come from?
Out of the blue. But then again, many things that Donald Trump does come from out of the blue.
And what's worth noting, by the way, that Lieberman works for a law firm now that represents who? Donald Trump.
Perhaps they slipped him a note.
Yeah. Democrats are not necessarily in favor of this one. They're still kind of pissed off that he left the party, although I guess it's not necessarily his choice that he left the party. He didn't get the nomination, but he opposed a lot of Obama policies. He has no law background, so they don't want another person who could possibly be partisan in that spot. But Trump is just chucking along, saying he's going to pick somebody really soon, and it might be Joe Lieberman who's going to take the chair.
Certainly, Al Gore and Joe Lieberman, had they taken their rightful place
my God,
in the White House, would have been the most boring president and vice president you'd ever have to listen to.
Guess what? We would kill for boring right about now, though, wouldn't we?
Certainly. Oh, man, be careful what you wish for, folks. But, Joe Lieberman might have to rely on his experience as being Connecticut's state attorney general back in the late 80s prior to being elected as the senator from our state. And, it's funny for me, I have a personal story about Joe Lieberman. Back in 2004, when I was a campaign manager for a state representative race here in the state of Connecticut, we actually had Joe come out and stump for us. Got to meet him, spent a couple hours with him while he was, we were hanging out at the Governor's Tavern in East Hampton, Connecticut. And we had a grand old time. And little did I know, 13 or 14 or 13 years ago, I guess it was, that this guy would potentially become the head of the FBI during one of the most tumultuous times in American history.
Just say no, Joe. Just say no. One of the things I want to wonder about is, so I was raised Jewish, but I'm really agnostic, borderline atheist, not very religious. But he's like super religious. I mean, he's, I think, probably even more religious than the Kushners. But say something crazy comes out on a Saturday when he's not allowed to use a light or a phone or anything. What do they do? I mean, does he ask his rabbi for special powers to be able to do that, or does he just give it to his deputy?
Hey, well, I was raised Catholic, and the Pope said I could have corned beef and cabbage on St. Patrick's Day this year, even though it was on a Friday during Lent. So, things can be arranged.
And the Pope also, through lack of response, said I could be the godfather to your children. I tweeted the Godfather. I tweeted the Pope and said, "Hey, I'm a Jewish guy. Can I become my best friend's the godfather to his children? If you're cool with it, do not respond." And he didn't respond, so I'm taking that as a yes.
Hey, look, different people might read that different ways.
Yeah, God moves in mysterious ways. I'll have Trump ask him when he meets him in a couple of days. All right, that's a lot of information that happened in just the last 4 days or so. So, Kevin, what do you have for Kevin's Corner?
Well, Jesse, in making his first foreign trip as president, Donald Trump has a wonderful opportunity to ease the fears of the nations of the world, depending on the way he chooses to present himself and the ideals of the United States. We should hold out hope that he did his due diligence in preparing to negotiate with other heads of state from diverse backgrounds, beliefs, and values. The ability to empathize with our perceived enemies will carry us farther than simplistic America First doctrine. Showing a willingness to learn the history and culture of other nations will allow the president and his contemporaries to form peaceful and long-lasting solutions to the difficulties we are facing. This is the true art of the deal.
Boom, boom, boom. Oh, snap. Well, that's wonderful, Kevin. Thank you so much for that. And thanks to all of our fans for listening today. We appreciate it, as always. And anything that might go down next week while I'm traveling, I'm sure we'll talk about it on Twitter. And then, if anything crazy happens, maybe like Friday night we can do something quickly. But if not, we'll be back same time, our same normal time at least, on a Tuesday, hopefully, or maybe Monday of the following week. So, everybody, thanks so much for listening. Go to our website, www.grabthembythepod.com, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, Kev.
Later.